What's up, family? So, for years, the political left has insisted that Americans support lenient immigration policies, open borders, animosity, sanctuary cities. But a new poll from CNN, yes, CNN, just shattered that narrative. According to their numbers, 56% of Americans now support deporting all undocumented immigrants. That's not a fringe view, that's the majority. So let's talk about what changed, what this means, and why politicians like Senator Chris Van Hollen are getting blasted for defending foreign nationals over U.S. citizens. So with no further ado, family, let's check out the CNN poll.
Deport all undocumented immigrants. Voters favoring the government trying to deport all 11 million of them. Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority. The American people have come a long way on this issue, much closer to Donald Trump, and I think that's a big part of the reason why Americans are increasingly saying the country is on the right track when it comes to immigration policy, and why Donald Trump's net approval rating on that issue is in the positive.
So let's go back to 2016 because the numbers don't lie, family. Just 38% of Americans supported deporting all undocumented immigrants. That was when border security was still labeled, NX-phobic in mainstream media. Fast forward to 2025, that number has jumped to 56%. That's a near 20% swing. That's a near 20-point swing in less than a decade. A shift driven by reality on the ground, not partisanship. And this isn't a conservative poll. This is coming from CNN, a network known for the leaning left and supporting Democrats. If they're reporting a majority support for mass deportation, it means something big has changed. Not just in politics, but in public perception. Why the shift, you may ask? And let's get into the why. People are watching chaos unfold. Border crossings hitting record highs, migrant crime stories making headlines, cities stretched thin, shelters full, schools overwhelmed, billions spent on non-citizens while everyday Americans struggle to afford rent and groceries, and regular working class Americans, not just Twitter activists, are saying enough. They don't hate immigrants. They just expect laws to be followed and leaders to prioritize their own cities. That's not racism. That's common sense, folks. So it goes into this next video of how CNN also elaborates on the poll when it comes to the majority. Check it out, family.
63%, according to the latest Fox News poll, say that they favor deporting those immigrants. So that's a pretty high number. Can you square that with what we just heard from Priscilla's reporting?
Yeah, I think that obviously the president has kind of blanketed the airwaves with saying that all of these people deported are criminals. And given the fact that we, reporters like Priscilla, we have very limited information to who exactly has been deported. The government has not handed over names. I know CBS got a hold of a list of names, but that hasn't been provided to those who are asking for who was actually deported. And there is a difference between someone who came into the country illegally versus someone who overstayed their visa. That's not a crime, versus someone who has no criminal record, no criminal history. Mm-hmm. And based on my reporting, based on clearly Priscilla's reporting, there are some Venezuelan nationals whose family members, whose lawyers say that they were deported, who have no criminal record, who have no criminal history, that they legally applied for asylum or were trying to gain status, where some of them were in the middle of proceedings, and then they were deported.
Now, let's look at Senator Van Hollen. He has entered the chat with his, I should say, ignorance of action. Well, let's check out what he had to say before I add the context and talk about it. And we have a discussion, guys.
I'm here with Chris Newman, who is the attorney for the wife and mother of Kilmar Garcia. And we just tried to go visit him in prison just to check on his conditions. Is he doing okay? Because nobody has any communication with him since he was illegally abducted from Maryland and sent to CCOT prison in El Salvador, which is a U.S. District Court judge said was a violation of all his due process rights. Today's purpose was just to see what his health condition is. And these soldiers were ordered to prevent us from going any farther from this spot. I understand we're about 3 kilometers now from CCOT. And as you can see, they're letting other cars go by, but they stopped us because they're under orders not to allow us to proceed to check on the well-being of Kilmar Garcia.
Well, there you have it, folks. Now that we have seen the public shift from CNN polls that Americans actually support undocumented immigrants and the mass deportations, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, instead of addressing his own state issues, crime, drug overdoses, economic inequality, he books a trip to El Salvador. Why? To advocate for Kilmar Garcia, a deported foreign national with reported MS 13 ties, a criminal record, and allegations of domestic violence. Let's pause for a second. So you're flying across the world on taxpayer money to advocate for a deported gang affiliate, not a U.S. citizen. You don't see a problem with that? He even complained when the Salvadorian government, as you guys seen, wouldn't let him visit Garcia in prison, acting as if he had diplomatic immunity. That's not advocacy. That's political theater. So, was the deportation justified? Let's be fair here. If someone is deported without due process, that's a serious issue. But that's not what happened here. Garcia was in the country illegally. He had multiple criminal indictments on record, went through immigration proceedings, was given a final removal order. That's not just injustice, that's how the system is supposed to work. So when Van Hollen applies that this was a kidnapping or illegal abduction, it's not just misleading, it undermines the rule of the law. So it's mind blowing to me how the narrative manipulation um, takes part in the narrative manipulation takes part at jeopardizing actually being fully honest and transparent with the American people. So you're putting the trust of American people in jeopardy to feed into a narrative to play political theater games or theatric games. So this is how the story get twisted. They leave out the key facts like gang affiliation or prior arrest or immigration court outcomes. Insert emotional framing, family separated or victim of harsh policy, etc. Paint the US as the villain. You would think he's like anti-American, like he hates America or something, because you're supporting an illegal in El Salvador, but you don't go as hard for Americans as you're going for an illegal, and you are getting paid from Americans to actually do the things that you need to do as a in your state of Maryland. So you paint the U.S. as a villain, especially under Trump era decisions, because I guess he's just anti-Trump. Use political figures for moral optics by with the photo op, and you see him doing a video, and a result the public see a highly edited version of reality that ignores victims, communities, and law enforcement. And that's how bad policies get defended with incomplete stories told in just the right way. So what the public really wants, as you guys seen from CNN polls, is didn't just show support for deportation. It showed that more Americans now think immigration policy is on the right track for the first time in years. And that's a huge signal. It means people are tired of watching non-citizens get priority over veterans, hearing crime stories buried because of their political inconvenient, they're politically inconvenient, meaning they don't benefit these politicians, so they don't want to talk about the crime stories, so they bury them. Seeing elected officials fight harder for deported criminals than struggling Americans. They want leadership with a spine. They want someone who will stand on business, pick a side, and stand on it. Don't straddle the fence and not bow to activists. So the bottom line is I can't even talk. Immigration debate isn't just about borders anymore. It's about values, priorities, and whether America will be a country with laws or a lawless open door experiment. And Senator Van Hollen, as you guys seen, can chase headlines all he wants, but the American people are no longer buying it. So they want safety, they want stability, and more than anything, they want leadership that puts American first. So like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Should elected officials be using taxpayer dollars to advocate for deported criminals, or should they be fixing a mess right there in their home? Here at home in America. This isn't hate, it's accountability, and the public is waking up fast. So with no further ado, family, I hope you guys got some value from this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Like I said, spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate. And I'll see you in the next one, guys.